Politics is about, being very sensitive. In the first place, in my opinion, politics is about being very sensitive to changes in public opinion. And then, how do you deal with that public opinion? I'll give you a personal example. There was a time when you were involved in the Israel-Palestine conflict, and I've been involved since June 1982 when Israel invaded Lebanon. There was a time when you were basically just a martyr bearing witness. You never really felt like you can have an impact on public opinion. I remember there was a time I would march down the street. We chanted the most idiotic slogans, everybody should know, I support the PLO. Really stupid, as if the issue were who I supported in Brooklyn, New York. The issue is who the Palestinians support, not who I support. In any event, I remember, you march down the street, and I had a little paranoid streak, inherited it from my family, so I'm always waiting for the sharpshooter, to kill you. And it was like just marching into the valley of death. That's what supporting the Palestinians meant in the 1970s and 80s. And so I was given to using, I won't call it hyperbolic, exaggerated analogies, but I was using language which was trying to shake people up. So you constantly made the Nazi Holocaust analogy, the Nazi analogy, not because it worked, but because you wanted to rattle people, to shake them up like, what's going on here? But nowadays, I never do that anymore because it's really unnecessary. Nowadays, all you have to do is cite the Goldstone Report, cite Human Rights Watch, cite Amnesty International, cite Gideon Levy, Amira Haas, cite B'Tselem. You don't have to use, and in fact, you ought not to use the old language, because now we have a real chance of reaching a public. People are ready to listen. Yesterday at USC, which is a typical experience with me, about 30 students came marching in a phalanx, wearing a tag that said truth. And they were the truth squad, which was going to shoot me down. And they sat all together in the center of the auditorium. It happens quite often. And I said to the organizers, if there's any trouble, just let me handle it, don't worry. And I knew exactly what was going to happen. They were ready for the confrontation. A security guard called me before I came to USC, be prepared for trouble, we have security here, and so on and so forth. And I watched them, I was making eye contact, and slowly you saw I was citing one Israeli after another, one soldier after another, one Israeli report after another, and you saw them sort of like shrink in their seat, because they I said to people afterwards, there's a way of shaming your enemy into silence. And I kept reading one soldier after another saying there was no war in Gaza. We never saw any Hamas militants. We never saw any Arabs. One Israeli said what happened in Gaza was like a child with a magnifying glass burning ants. Another Israeli said it was like PlayStation 2 computer game. Everything was done by remote control. And the more they listened, the more they shriveled up. And at the end, and there were people there who could confirm, half of them just quietly, very respectfully, just got up and walked out. And the other half stayed, listened, very polite. One fellow had the courage to take the microphone, asked me questions, I would say for a good 10 minutes. I patiently answered them. The questions were quite aggressive about Hezbollah, about Ahmadinejad, and so on and so forth. I answered what I thought was honestly, but not disrespectfully. By the end, this fellow, he stayed till the end. He came over, thanked me for being there, and was getting on splendidly with the group that organized us. That's what happened, and it happens everywhere now. You can reach people. And so you have to be very careful about what you say, because now your words are no longer just bearing moral witness. They have political consequences. You say the right thing, you can win a lot of people over. You say the wrong thing, you're going to lose a lot of people. Now that doesn't mean you should be unprincipled. When I was asked my opinion of Hezbollah and statements that Mr. Sheikh Nasrallah has said, I said what I believe. But I said it in a way which was, I tried to explain my reasoning, that I'm not a madman, and I'm not just making insane statements, that there's a reason why I'm saying what I say. You may not agree with the reason, but there is a reason there. And so I think that's what we have to do, and I'm just a little bit wary when I hear people try to reduce a very complex struggle with great potential now for reaching a broad public, reducing it to 3 initials, BDS, and it's beginning to feel like, are you now or have you ever been? And now it's, do you or don't you support BDS? It's become another litmus test. Just like, are you now or have you ever been a Zionist? I may disappoint some people in the room, but I couldn't care less if you're a Zionist. For me, it's completely irrelevant. I want to know where you stand on house demolitions. I want to know where you stand on torture. I want to know where you stand on expropriation of people's lands. I want to know where you stand on this wall that Israel is building and stealing Palestinian land. Where do you stand on curfews, closures? Where do you stand on the ethnic cleansing of Jerusalem? I don't want to get involved in an ideological struggle with you. I want to know where you stand on basic issues of human rights and basic political issues. That's all I care about. I'm not going to engage in this ideological litmus test, which is going to, if you apply it with rigor, it's going to exclude Richard Goldstone himself from our ranks, because he's very adamant that he's a Zionist. And it'll exclude Noam Chomsky from our ranks, because Professor Chomsky says, I was a Zionist since 5 years old and I haven't changed. It's very sobering. When I was 5 years old, I was learning how to zipper my pants, and he was already, a Zionist. Okay? Good for him. I'm sure he read everything in the history of Zionism by the time he was 4, and he spent around a year, deciding, and then 5 he became a Zionist. But
maybe what some of us can do, or maybe what all of us can do, those of us who are here tonight, is agree not to use BDS any longer, but just to say the words out for everybody.
And so I don't want to write those people off.